Morning all. What I'm going to be doing today is prepping the perspex sheet for the pilot house front windows. There's 3 windows, a centre and a left and right obviously, across the front of that pilot house. And so I'll cut the perspex into 3 separate sheets. Then I will take them up to the boat, mark them up for size, bring them down and trim them with the saw. And then after that I'll prep the edges, sanding and rounding off the corners so as we don't get any sharp edges. Then I'll be creating an inner mask with silicone sealant. It's black sealant. I'll mask off the inside area, apply the sealant after cleaning it with alcohol and roughing up the surface a bit too so I get a good adhesion. And then once I fit the window to the pilot house face down, it will create that nice inner black mask, hiding the caulking from inside and the frame structure itself and giving us a nice look from the outside. So we'll start off now by cutting the sheets and getting them ready, and I hope you enjoy the video. Thanks. Alright, so once I've transferred the templates to the acrylic sheet, I cut them out using a power saw, and with this particular saw I use quite a fine tooth blade, one that's actually designed for aluminium, but it does give a nice cut and ensures that I don't get too much chipping or tearing along the line of the cut. Flat factory. One thing that is quite important is to make sure that we sand the edges of the perspex sheet before we do anything else. What we want to do is make sure we prepare those edges well by giving them a good sand to reduce any scratching, any score lines or anything that might lead to cracking from the edge of the perspex when it expands and contracts in the weather. What I wanted to do with my windows is create a nice inner mask, very similar to the production style yachts do today. And to do that I draw a 25mm frieze around the outside of the perspex onto the protective paper sheet, and then I round the corners off using a disc to give me that nice look. What we have to do then is expose that underlying area of the perspex that I'm going to apply the sealant to create the black mask. And I use a very fine blade to cut around the line that I've drawn and then peel away just the outer edge of the protective paper. One thing I didn't want to happen with this particular procedure is I didn't want the silicone to stick to the protective sheet, so when I peeled it off it makes a mess, I get bits of paper left behind and that. So what I decided to do was I would mask the edge of that paper so that after I apply the sealant and before it starts to cure, I'm able to remove the masking tape, ensuring that the sealant doesn't get onto the protective paper. And once it does cure, which when it's that thin a layer it doesn't take very long, I can peel the paper off without any problem, and it leaves a really neat edge around the inside of that inner mask. before I can actually put the silicone sealant down, I need to make sure that I rough up the edge of this perspex with some quite coarse grit paper. We want to get a good adhesion of the silicone to the perspex, and by roughing up the surface and cleaning it with isopropanol, it makes sure that when we do put the silicone sealant down, it sticks well and doesn't peel off. The adhesive sealant I'm using here for these windows is a product especially formulated here in Australia, and it's made specifically for acrylic and lexan windows. The major difference I think with this product compared to many other silicone sealants is that it is an adhesive as well as a sealant, and it has very good expansion and contraction properties, which helps to prevent it from separating from the window or the substrate that it sticks to when you get that quite large expansion and contraction of the windows with the change of temperature. So how I create my masks around my window edges is, as you can see, I squeeze a bead of the sealant around the outside edge, and I just use protective rubber gloves to spread the sealant and make sure that I get good coverage all around. One of the important factors to remember with this particular method is that you should always remove the blue masking tape before the sealant starts to cure. And the reason for that is if you leave the sealant to cure, when you peel the masking tape away, you risk actually tearing some of the sealant away because it's still soft, or peeling up from the edge. And the reason I use masking tape over the protective paper is by making sure the masking tape is tight up against the edge of the paper. When I remove it, it doesn't disturb the sealant while it's still wet, but once it is cured after a few days, you can remove that paper and it doesn't cause any problems with damaging the underlying mask, and you get a nice clean edge to it, and it works very well for me. So one of the final things I like to do is just flip the window over and peel back the corner of the protective paper, just to ensure that I've got good coverage of the sealant on the back side, and to make sure there's a nice line around the inside edge. That's it for now with this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.